Ever wondered how to start a fire in the wild without a lighter or matches? Well, fire is more than just warmth on a chilly night. It's survival. It cooks your meals, signals for help, and keeps predators at bay. Today we'll explore 3 time-honored methods to spark a flame in the wilderness: friction, sparks, and with a little help from our good old friend, the sun. So without further ado, let's dive into the first method. First off, let's delve into the friction method, an ancient and reliable way to initiate a fire in the wild. This technique, often referred to as the bow drill method, stands as a testament to human resourcefulness and the survival instincts of our forebears. It is entirely based on the principle of friction-generated heat. For this method, you'll need 2 primary components: a hardwood fireboard and a softwood spindle. You can source these from your environment. The fireboard can be a flat piece of wood, and the spindle can be a stick of softer wood. It's crucial to remember that both need to be dry. Now let's visualize. Imagine moving a stick back and forth rapidly against a flat surface, similar to the motion of sawing. This generates heat due to friction, and with enough heat, an ember is formed. It's essential to have a bundle of dry, fluffy material, also known as a tinder bundle, ready to capture this ember. Once you've secured your ember in the tinder bundle, blow on it gently to provide the oxygen it needs to evolve into a flame. Remember, the friction method demands patience and practice, but once mastered, it can become a game changer in survival scenarios. Now let's explore our second method. The second method, the sparks method, is a little less labor-intensive, but requires some specific tools. Now, the sparks method is a classic dating back thousands of years. It involves 2 key components: flint and steel. Flint is a type of quartz that generates sparks when struck against steel. And steel, well, that's usually a part of your survival kit, right? Now here's where things get interesting. You'll also need something known as char cloth. This is a piece of fabric that's been charred, and it's perfect for catching those tiny sparks. To use the sparks method, simply strike your flint against your steel in a downward motion. This should generate a shower of sparks. Aim these sparks towards your char cloth. Once a spark lands and begins to glow, gently blow on it to nurture the ember into a flame. With the right tools, the sparks method can be a real lifesaver. Now let's move on to our final method. Before we move on to the sunlight method, let's take a closer look at the sparks method. As mentioned, this method requires flint and steel, but not all flint and steel are created equal. Flint can come in various forms, from chert to obsidian, each with its own unique properties. Similarly, steel can range from a simple knife blade to a specialized fire striker. The key is to find a combination that works best for you. You might be wondering, how do I prepare char cloth? Well, you'll need a piece of cotton fabric and a fire. First, cut the fabric into small squares. Then place these squares in a metal container and put it in a fire. Once the fabric stops smoking, it's ready. But be careful, as char cloth is extremely delicate. Now let's break down the steps of the sparks method. First, position your char cloth close to your flint. Then strike the steel against the flint in a quick downward motion. The goal is to shower sparks onto the char cloth. Once a spark lands and begins to glow, gently blow on it. This will nurture the ember into a flame. Remember, practice makes perfect. With the right tools and a little patience, the sparks method can indeed be a lifesaver. Now let's move on to the sunlight method. Our final method, the sunlight method, takes advantage of the most abundant source of heat we have: the sun. This method is as old as time itself and can be incredibly effective when you find yourself in a pinch. All you'll need is a magnifying glass and some dry tinder. The magnifying glass is a tool that can harness the power of the sun's rays and concentrate them onto one spot. This focused beam of light can generate an impressive amount of heat, enough to ignite your tinder. Just remember, the tinder has to be dry, as moisture can make it harder to start the fire. To utilize this method, hold the magnifying glass between the sun and your tinder, adjusting the distance until you find the spot where the sunlight focuses to a small, intense point. You'll soon see smoke rising from the tinder, and before you know it, you've got yourself a fire. The sunlight method is simple but effective, as long as the sun is shining. Now, let's wrap things up. All right, folks, we've learned about the sunlight method, but let's take a closer look at it. We'll be giving you some additional tips and tricks to make this method even more foolproof. First off, let's talk about magnifying glasses. They come in all shapes and sizes, but for our purpose, a larger lens often works better. The larger the lens, the more sunlight it can gather and focus, leading to a hotter, more intense beam. But remember, even a small lens can get the job done if you're patient. Now, how to position your magnifying glass? This is crucial. Hold the magnifying glass between the sun and your tinder, and start adjusting the distance. As you move it closer or further away, you'll notice the beam of light changes shape. What you're looking for is a small, intensely bright spot. That's where the heat is most concentrated. Here's a tip. If you're having trouble getting your tinder to ignite, try using char cloth or a piece of fungus. These materials catch fire more easily and can make the process quicker. Finally, remember that the sunlight method, while simple, is dependent on the weather. No sun, no fire. So always have a backup plan. And there you have it, folks. The sunlight method, up close and personal. Now, let's wrap things up. So, we've covered 3 different methods to start a fire in the wild: friction, sparks, and sunlight. Let's take a quick stroll down memory lane. With the friction method, we learned how to harness the power of persistence and elbow grease. Rubbing 2 sticks together might seem simple, but it's a skill that requires patience, dedication, and the right kind of wood. Moving on to the sparks method, we explored the fascinating world of flint and steel. A tiny spark can lead to a roaring fire, but only if you know how to catch it and have the right tinder to nurture it. Lastly, we delved into the sunlight method. A simple tool like a magnifying glass can become your savior on a sunny day, focusing the sun's rays into a single fire starting point. Remember, practice and preparation are your best allies. Master these techniques, and you'll never find yourself without warmth or a way to cook in the wild. Remember, the key to survival is adaptability. Stay safe and stay warm out there, folks.